he recommended the doctors to terminate her, or if he told her to just sell her house and move. Unexpectedly, Morgan sheds a tear and reaches her breaking point after these hurtful words. She looks at her hands and pushes Ben against the wall before lunging at him. She then bites hard into his throat and rips a chunk out, leaving the doctor in a bloody mess. Immediately, the whole team is alerted by the commotion, and Darren attempts to sedate Morgan once again, but she uses Ben as a shield and eventually knocks Darren to the ground. Lee, who has been watching this, tries to calm her down, but then the lights go out, giving Morgan an opportunity to escape. Lee quickly grabs a tranquilizer to prevent the AI from going too far away. However, Morgan soon emerges to the outside world and sees Amy waiting for the evaluation results. She feels a sense of comfort upon seeing Amy, but this happy moment is abruptly ended when Lee sedates her. When Morgan regains consciousness, she finds herself back inside the lab and immediately apologizes for her actions. The team of doctors debates on what to do with her and what is best for the company. Dr. Louis, the chief of this project, is adamant on terminating Morgan, while Simon wants to give it another try. However, the chief remains unmoved on her decision, prompting a devastated Simon to walk away. Later, the whole team gets emotional. While preparing the termination procedure, Morgan has grown close to their hearts and has been a part of their daily routine. The AI pleads with everyone in the room not to kill her, even calling for her mother, Dr. Louis. This makes the chief emotional, but she simply apologizes to Morgan before walking away. This is going to end terribly for Louis. Following this, Morgan is given sedatives, which soon knock her unconscious. Simon and Dr. Louis walk away, unable to bear what is about to come. Darren, who is tasked with administering a lethal solution to Morgan, also changes his mind and leaves the lab with his wife. Without the medical team in sight, Lee decides to put an end to Project L9 herself, but Ted stops her. Lee hits him in the face and holds him at gunpoint, but right then, Amy shoots her with a sedative, causing her to doze off. When Lee regains consciousness, she finds herself locked inside Morgan's room, with Ted standing outside. She commands him to let her out before the higher-ups arrive, but he ignores her threats. In the next scene, Amy, Ted, Brenda, and Darren gather supplies to get Morgan out of the lab safely. Darren then tries to wake up the AI, but suddenly all hell breaks loose. Morgan appears to have a completely different personality as she headbutts Darren in the face. She then grabs the lethal injection and sticks it in his chest, ultimately killing him. Frightened, Ted holds a gun to her face, but Morgan manages to grab the weapon and shoots him instead. She then mercilessly finishes him off as Lee watches on from inside the glass room. Outside, Brenda loads the supplies in her car and instructs Skip to be ready to leave. The latter is confused, but he soon sees Morgan leading Amy out of the laboratory. He immediately senses that something bad is happening and runs back to the building to look for Lee. As Brenda reunites with Amy, she asks about her husband's whereabouts, but the frightened woman cannot utter a word. This is when the AI suddenly points a gun at Brenda from behind. The doctor realizes what is happening and tries to spring a quick attack. However, Morgan's strength remains unmatched, and she eventually beats Brenda to death. Hungry for revenge, Morgan makes her way to the residential quarters where she sees Kathy. The poor woman tries to approach Morgan in a friendly way. "Hey babe, how you doing?" Only to get brutally kicked to death. Meanwhile, Lee manages to climb to the top of the room through an air vent and escapes by breaking through the glass sunroof. She sees Skip outside, who is still shaken by the devastating deaths of his colleagues. Lee, on the other hand, is extremely calm and instructs him to grab a weapon. It is obvious that there is more to Lee than meets the eye. Back at the residential quarters, Dr. Louis records a video detailing the events that took place just now, but before she can finish, Morgan enters the room, approaches her mother, and even gives her a kiss on the forehead. In a shocking twist, she then suffocates her, and this murder is caught on camera. Sometime later, Lee arrives at the residential quarters, only to find the lifeless Simon hung from a cabinet. She looks around the area, when suddenly, Morgan emerges from one of the corners to attack her. They get into a fierce brawl, taking turns at throwing each other across the room. As the fight progresses, Morgan launches herself at Lee, but both of them fall out of the window and land on the car parked below. There, Skip tries to stop Morgan, but she knocks him down and drives out of the area with Amy. A determined Lee then gets in her car as well and frantically chases after the fugitive AI. She soon catches up to Morgan, but the latter manages to bump her car and forces it to crash into a big tree. An increasingly desperate Amy begs Morgan to stop, but the AI is hell-bent on escaping to freedom. On the other hand, Lee somehow manages to survive the crash with nothing but a few scratches. Skip soon arrives in his car and claims to know where Morgan and Amy are headed. Elsewhere, in the nearby forest, Morgan takes Amy to Lake Navarre, a journey she had awaited for so long. The AI claims that she won't harm her, but Amy remains vigilant with a weapon tucked under her jacket. Soon enough, Morgan sees the lake and sheds a tear of joy, experiencing true freedom for the first time in her life. Meanwhile, Lee grabs Skip's rifle and goes to the jungle to kill Morgan herself. She doesn't want to waste too much time and fires a shot in the air. This is enough to grab Morgan's attention, who also decides to return to the woods and finish Lee for good. Shortly after, the two come head to head and a fierce brawl breaks out. They throw numerous punches at each other, but Morgan eventually pushes Lee into a trunk. She gets impaled by a branch, a sight that is hauntingly similar to the deer that Morgan had killed mercifully. However, this time, Morgan decides to walk away, leaving her opponent to bleed out to death. She soon returns to the lake and tries to run away with Amy, but in a shocking twist, Lee arrives at the spot. Seemingly unhurt, except for a few scratches, she pushes Morgan into the lake and holds her underwater until she stops moving. Lee then takes the pistol from Amy and shoots her in the head. Following this, she drags herself back to the spot where Skip had parked the car. Lee shockingly shoots him as well, effectively killing the last member of Project L9. In the aftermath of this event, Synsect head Jim Bryce discusses the incident with other board members and declares the Project L9 a failure. We then see Lee Weathers in a local restaurant, calm and expressionless as usual. Rather curiously, she examines her hands, a gesture similar similar to Morgan's. The movie comes to an end as we finally learn that she is also a bioengineered being specifically designed to carry out orders without any